Hi, Ann Cornick from Paint and Porcelain Exchange, and tonight is a big night. Tonight we're doing Petit Point. I know everybody's been looking forward to that. Now, there's been a lot of discussion and a lot of questions about Petit Point, so I'm going to try to answer all of them. I have tried every method that I can find. My mother was absolutely nuts about Petit Point. It was popular here back in the 70s. She had every paste and oil known to man so that she could do it. And she did it primarily on jewelry. And I think you will see it mainly on jewelry, although you can see it on the tops of boxes as well. Now, everything I've read says that if you have bisque, it tends to work better. And I've tried it on both bisque and glazed china. And I have to say my preference is bisque. I think it just seems to have a softer tone to it. Really looks nice. So I'm going to show you a couple of samples of what we're doing. You've seen some of these. Now it's going to be hard to see the pattern, the Petit Point pattern on these. I've got a light here, and I'm hoping that if I hold it just the right angle, you can kind of see the pattern. Yeah, there you can. This one, the Petit Point was put on first, and then I painted over it. Okay, so that's one way you can do it. This one, I painted first, and then I put the Petit Point over it. And can you see it? You can barely, yeah, you can see the Petit Point netting there, yeah. This one, I put the Petit Point on first, and it's bisque, and then I painted over it. And here's the real way that you can see the difference. This one, I put the Petit Point on first. I painted it, and then I put the Petit Point on. And this one, I put the Petit Point on, and then I painted it. So whatever way you decide you want to do it is entirely up to you. You can paint before you put the netting effect on, or you can put the netting effect on and paint. So I hope you've decided which one you like. This is what the Petit Point looks like on a non-bisque. This is glazed. Now you see it's a little shiny, but can you see? You can really see the Petit Point on that. Okay? So you can use glazed, you can use bisque, you can use either kind, but you cannot use something that is concave. So you don't want this side where it dips in. You don't want a plate where it swoops down. What you want is a piece of jewelry is perfect because it's, see, it's convex, it curves up, or something flat. Those are the two things that you want. It'll make it easier to put the netting on for you too. Okay. There are a number of agents that you can use to create the Petit Point look. Not knowing what things are called in what country, I thought I would try to give you some examples. Vellum is the first one. I had vellum here. I can't find it right now. I don't know what I did with it. I might have thrown it out the window because it didn't work very well. But you can use that. Vellum is a white powder. They're all white powders, and that's what's really confusing if you talk to people. Everything's a white powder, but a vellum is a white powder. It's generally used to put on glazed porcelain to make it have a matte finish. So you would paint it on, and it would make it very similar to bisque. Now I used it, and I mixed it with copaiba, which is a drying oil. Left it overnight, just like I did with everything else that I'm doing. And when I lifted the netting off, it just smeared something awful. For some reason, it just, I don't know if it was the consistency of the vellum, but I put it on the same way I put everything else on. It did not work for me. And it didn't completely cover either. It just didn't move as well as I thought it would. So what I had to do was soak it in vinegar to get rid of it. So if you have vellum and you want to try it, because you never knew what vellum was for, try it. And if it doesn't work, just soak it in vinegar and the vinegar will get it off. But I'll tell you, it takes about 3 hours in the vinegar. Okay. White matte paint you can use, they say. So I tried the white matte paint. For me, I mixed it the same way I mixed anything else, following the same directions, and I'll tell you what those are, but it was too gloppy, too almost like breadcrumbs. I tried to thin it with the turpentine like I was told. It did not thin down very well. So if you've heard that you can use white matte paint, you could certainly try it, but I found that it was just too dry and it never seemed to really get smooth enough to make it, you know, to cover the netting. Now, this is really important. There are two things that people confuse all the time, and I want to set the record straight. I went and looked on the PPIO site, and I pulled down the information that Marcy Blattenberger, who is the person that handles that site, put out there. It's the same stuff that I knew, but I just wanted to make sure I knew it right. There are two things. One's called raised paste, and the other one is called base for gold or base for raised gold. Okay, raised paste, it has yellow in it. It's a yellowish powder. I used it to do this mirror, okay? It's to put Roman gold over. You do scrolling with it. All these raised pieces on there, that's all done with raised paste, but it is a yellow powder. You fire it, it fires with a yellow tinge to it, kind of like a Trenton Ivory. It fires with that kind of a tinge to it. And then you put Roman gold over it. That's raised paste. Base for raised gold or base for gold. I've heard it called a number of things. It comes in two forms, but I can only find one right now. It comes in, my mother had this. This is the base for raised gold. And she got it from, it looked like she got it from Rin's. I've looked everywhere. Dallas, China doesn't carry it. Maryland, China doesn't carry it. And a painter's collection that carries all the Rin's paints does not carry it. I have a couple of these little handwritten ones that somebody gave me, and these are all base for raised gold, and then I also have the little vials. Okay, you can get them from Mary Ashcroft at ashcroftstudios.com. Okay, now the oils that you use to mix this with, just so you know, are drying oils, but not lavender, okay? Lavender was never mentioned. And thanks to Nancy Gilbert, I probably have every article that ever appeared in any of the China magazines about Petit points. So I never saw lavender mentioned. What they do mention is copaiba, balsam of copaiba. It has to be a drying one. And the other thing that they meant that I used and I found very successful that they didn't mention, let me show you here. Dallas has a drying pen oil. It's called AGS 21, drying pen oil. I have one of each. I have a drying and I have an easy flow one. And the drying pen oil, you don't use much of it, you're just mixing your paint, works wonderful. It dries in about 5 minutes, but you leave it overnight. The oil of copaiba will dry, but you really have to leave it overnight. So if you moved your netting around at all, the oil of copaiba is more likely to have a problem than the drying pen oil. But I really don't know what the difference in price is, so you know that's something you'd have to decide. Okay, and when you use this, you're going to thin with turpentine. Okay, so I'm going to put you down so you can see how we do this, and you now have all the the things that you need to know about it to get started. So this is a piece of bisque that I've used. I've got a whole little thing full of them, and it already has a hole in it, so this I can use. By the way, if you put liquid bright as an edging on the bisque, it will be almost like a Roman gold, just so you know. Okay, so I cut my netting according to size. Now the netting I used, I actually got at a craft store. It's the kind of netting, it's a 6-inch, here, can you see it? It's a 6-inch bolt of netting. There, here, go this way and this way. Okay, come out here, there, of netting. And the netting is very pliable. Someone suggested that you might be able to wash it if it's not, and that's actually not a bad idea. If you have old netting, you could try washing it. I tried everything, my old netting didn't work, so I got this. I don't think the size of the holes matter. These are tiny. They're not real big. Maybe the best thing is just to hold it over here so you can see. And I put it over this. And then at the dollar store, I got a can of these. They're little baby rubber bands for little kids' hair. You can get them at Walmart, Meijer, you know, drugstores, grocery stores, whatever. And I take and I put the netting on, get it on there the way I want it. I pull it around to the back like this, and I just spin it a couple of times. It's the easiest way to do it. And then I take my rubber band and I rubber band it off. And these little rubber bands make it very simple because you can just cut them when you're done and you don't have to worry about them. So it holds it. That's not real tight. I need to put it one more time. You want it held very, very tightly. So you might have to do it maybe a couple of times here. Let me just get it around there one more time there. Pretend you're doing some little 2-year-old's pigtails, okay? Okay, pull it. You know how you always pull it like this? That gets it nice and tight. So it is tight on there. Okay, so that's how I do it. On the bigger one, I did the same thing. The bigger circle, I just took a bigger piece of the netting, the tulle. This is called tulle, not netting. And I just put it around, and that was it. Now, I would suggest getting a dedicated brush, and it can be just a simple, this is like one of those craft store, you know, water brushes. It's not water color brushes. It's not a good brush, but I wanted one that was kind of wide because I knew most of the things I was going to be doing were wide, and I really wanted to make sure I had what I needed. So that's how you prepare your tile. Now, to prepare the paint that you're going to use, or yeah, it's basically paint. Here's my tile. I'm going to take some, remember we're talking about base for gold or base for raised gold. Just like I would do for mixing paint, I'm going to put some on here. I'm going to be generous because I want to make sure I have enough to cover the whole thing. So I probably used 1/3 of a vial. I would say have a couple of projects ready that you can do this with, maybe some earrings and a necklace or something. Then I'm going to take, you can either use a pipette if you have it. That's one of these things with the little squeezy end. Or you can just use the corner of your knife. I prefer the corner of my knife. I am going to use the drying pen oil. This I know you can get. This is my Copaiba, and it's nice stuff, but it takes twice as long, so, okay. Now, a lot of places they say to tape the netting around. I found the tape doesn't work very well. If you put it in at an angle, can you see that there? It's on my knife. No, I'm going to need more. I'm going to use my pipette. Okay, let's try that. This will dry white. I know it looks a little mucky. Okay, Put a little more in here. Now you're just mixing it with this. Then you're going to thin it. Now you see how it's kind of, can you see here it's kind of not real thinned out? So now I'm going to take a little bit of turpentine, and I mean turpentine, the smelly stuff, people, and you're going to start mixing that in. I grew up using turpentine for everything. I bet a lot of you did. I used it for all my cleaners. And you want it so it's going to be really liquidy. Here we go. Oh, that might be a little too much. Let me take a little off. There. Okay. Okay, it's real soupy now up here, okay? That's good. See how I've got it now? Let me move it up this way a little more. It's real soupy. It's real kind of runny. Almost like if you were doing the pen oil and you let it drip off the end, it's kind of almost to that point, okay? That's what you want. Then you're going to take your brush that you were using, the one that you've designated. You're going to pick up your I'll push that off. Pick up your little piece here, and I'll put it down here so that you can see what I'm doing. And you're just going to paint. Oops, I need to put a little turpentine on my brush. It seems like it's dragging a little. Hang on here. Yeah, this gets kind of gummy, so you have to be very careful. Only go one direction. So I'm going to go from the top to the bottom and just keep doing that. Top to the bottom and just keep doing that. Can you see? Got it on half of that. Yeah, now you can see with the light. And you're just going to keep doing that from the top to the bottom. I'm dipping my brush in a little bit of the turpentine so that it will also flow. And you want to get all over. You want to get both sides. You want to get this side. And you want to go all the way down to the bottom. And then you just want to start going from the top to only one direction. Okay. And you can clean your brush later with turpentine. So I've got it all wet. Can you kind of tell that that's all wet there? From top to bottom. So I'm going to leave this set overnight. Then I'm going to gingerly pick it up, probably a little bit like this. Just so I'm underneath it. Cut the rubber band and gently pull it off. So I'll let it, I'll put it down and then I'll pull it off. I try to pull it so that I come kind of straight up. You don't want to mess this if you can help it. Let me see if I can show you. I think we'll let this set a little while and then we'll try it because it does dry very quickly. Now this is the piece, and I'll tilt this again. Okay, that's a little better. This is the piece that I've already put the netting on, the effect on. And I'm going to paint something on here for you so that you can see what it looks like. I'm just going to sketch real briefly so that I have something on here. So I want to do pansies. Let me see here. So now to paint, you just use your regular paint. Whatever oils you use, whatever solvents you use, but you have to fire first. So I'm going to take this. I'm going to wait till it dries. I'm going to pull the netting off. I'm going to fire it. That's already fired here. So for your second coat, you're actually going to take and you're going to paint over it. There, can you see as I'm painting? You can see a little bit of the, I got black on there too, cool. And we'll do it up this way. The nice thing is, when you paint, it uses that background to really help you spread your colors nice and thin and get a texture too, which is really cool. And now I'll do the next layer up. Here we go. And as I go around the outside of that layer, it has a little drag. But that's just the way it's supposed to. What cone for firing? 17. The only thing, this is slippery. It makes a more slippery surface, but a textured surface. And if you learn how to play with it, you can really get some interesting effects. And let me just do the leaves that are there, the one leaf, and then I'll hold it up. It's a very simple project that I think anyone could do. I know it looks a little messy, but it's because of the texture. You kind of have to play with that texture. It doesn't want to always play fair, so you kind of have to practice with it. Ah. But this is just regular oil now that I'm using. This leaf is giving me a hard time. Okay, but you get the idea. And you can wipe it off, just like you can on anything else if you don't like it. I don't have a browner. I'd use a brown. Here's a little black. There we go. Okay. Okay, so this, I wanted something big that you'd be able to see that I was doing rather than something small that you couldn't tell what I was doing. And you can tell I don't have a pansy in front of me, I'm just winging it. And then I think you put a little red or something in the middle, but anyway. So let me show you. I'm going to bring it close. So do you see what I did there? And can you see, if you look real carefully, can you see the texture on there? Geez, I just don't think you can see it the way I can see it. Here, let me do this. Let me just take a color. I think the purple did the best job. And I'm just going to lightly brush over this area here. Can you see the texture there? Yeah, you can a little better anyway. You can see how the texture shows up. So when you do these pieces, if you paint over the top, you still get the texture. Let's see if our, is it dry? Yeah, it looks like it's pretty dry. That's the nice thing about this. So this is it. I don't have any really tiny scissors, so I will use my monster ones that I have here. Yep, these worked. Okay, so I get it off. I open it up. You notice I'm still holding on to the sides. I'm just opening it up. I open it up completely. And then I just lift from front to back. Oh, this came out beautiful. I don't know if you can see, but the texture on this really came out beautifully. This texture will dry matte. And then I just set it on the back of a tile and carry it downstairs. All these I did that I showed you at the beginning. This is regular paint. Okay? This one was matte paint. This is matte paint. I personally think if I'm going to put that much time into it, and this is the regular paint. I like the regular paint because I think the matte paint, and this was matte paint underneath. And you can see it just, so, you know, I mean, look at it. If somebody's going to wear it, can you see this as well? If you have raised base pre-mixed like this, you can use it. You can leave it out. I would leave it out at least 2 days, if not 3 though, because it really never dries. And then very carefully lift from front to back when you take the netting off. You can reuse the netting, I found. Just to recap, you pick your piece, you decide if you want to paint first or not. If you want to paint first, you paint just like you normally do. If you want to put the netting on to make it look like Petit point, then you do that first. You use the netting. It doesn't matter what size the holes are, because when you paint over it, you're not going to really notice, unless they're humongous. Like, don't get them as big as, you know, the onion bags or something. But and then put that on. You're going to use the rubber band to tie it. You can use any rubber band. These little ones are nice because they're super teeny tiny. And then let it set overnight. Cut the rubber band off and lift the netting as gently as you can from front to back. If you move the netting at all, it'll screw it all up if it hasn't dried. If it's dried, it shouldn't make any difference. You'll be using a drying oil, Copaiba. If you have pine oil, try it and let me know if you do. Or you can use the drying oil from Dallas. Thank you very much for tuning in. I really appreciate it. Pick up those brushes, keep painting, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye. I hope you enjoyed the program, and I hope you'll take a minute to subscribe so that other people can learn more about China painting and we can get the word out to more people. You also can look at the links below. My paintandporcelain.com website has a lot of freebies and printables for new and experienced painters, as well as studies, supplies, and even some of my hand-painted china. So thank you again, and I'll see you next time.